The program you're about to see is the first in a 6-part series produced by In Our Name Initiative on economic, social, and criminal justice topics which affect our communities and the people we live with. A founding principle of In Our Name is that in a free and democratic society, citizens have an obligation to keep themselves informed about the policies their governments enact. In viewing this film, please ask yourself 2 questions. First, does this seem fair to you? Second, what is our obligation as a community and as voters to do something about it? Thank you.
It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. I did about 3 semesters, started working full-time, ended up getting an apartment about when I was 20, ended up getting pregnant, and then school was done as far as I was concerned because I had to take care of myself and get ready for motherhood. It was tough, because I had always felt that I had this calling that I was supposed to do, and then one decision to not go to this one college just kind of compounded everything else, and then it wasn't happening anymore. And then I was just kind of lost. I was trying to find something else that would click with me the way that did, and it really never did. So I just kind of felt that I had to do whatever to get by at that point.
Hold on, keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on.
So if I can, a little history lesson. Dr. King spoke about the 3 evils, being militarism, materialism, and racism. And now we add environmental destruction to that. And he saw the need to bring black, white, and brown people, all people together, so that they were striving and working together toward eliminating those 3 evils.
That's right, or the necessity of relying only on those principles, right?
Right, and so he launched the Poor People's Campaign in 1968. He was assassinated April 4th, 1968, before the campaign was launched in the spring. And now there's been a call for a moral revival, a new Poor People's Campaign.
Also, what are our local personal stories? What are the things that we want to see change in our local communities, and how can we do that united across communities? When I went to Gloversville for a Unity event, I walked in and said hello to my neighbors. People looked at me like I was kind of crazy, because I'm from Schenectady, so how's Gloversville my neighbor? The same way that this community is my neighbor. If it takes me 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, or I'm flying across the country, I see that bond, that purpose for us all to be united.
As you probably know, a topic that's really something that we feel here as a community, we really need to address income inequality and what it's like for people in this day and age to try to make ends meet, to try to get ahead for themselves and for their families.
I had a job working in a call center. It was okay. It was tough at first because I was working 10:30 in the morning till 7 at night with a little baby. You know, I'd go home, feed her, and then put her to bed. I felt like I was missing a lot. I was exhausted. At that point, I felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I was just so tired all the time, you know, between having a baby and working and trying to do everything. And I was a single mother, so I didn't have another partner to support me. I didn't ever want to ask my parents to take my daughter so that I could go out and do anything. Not that they wouldn't have done it, but I felt like that was my responsibility. I had a hard time doing that. So I feel like when that happened, I really lost a lot of my social circle because most of my peers were out partying and, you know, living their life, going on vacation, and I was just trying to get through the day-to-day stuff.
You know what? The question I would like to ask you is, someone comes through the door, a captain, right? For any number of things that you just sort of identified as areas of need, why are they coming through the door? Is it emotional? Is it meaning physical? It could be a physical abuse issue. Is it a financial issue? You know, what do you see most often?
Yes.
Yeah,
all
got
of
it.
those.
Yeah, got it.
Yes, it could be anything from a financial crisis to someone fleeing a domestic abuse situation, homelessness.
This is an issue that's all about poverty. Housing is a large component to everyone's living standards. The government says that you should be able to pay 30% of your income towards your housing. Most people can't find housing and have it be just 30% of their income. So a larger percentage of their income goes towards their housing, and now they have issues with, well, I can't get daycare, so I can get care for my children, so I can go to work, so I can get out of this subsidy that I get from the government to do my housing. So to me, it's all about trying to figure out the root of the problem with poverty in this country, and then in my end of it, take that and try to see what we can do best with the dollars that we've got to address those issues, especially here locally.
In areas like Buffalo, Syracuse, Binghamton, Schenectady, I mean, these places have child poverty rates hovering around 50%. Literally half the children in these communities are living under the poverty level. So, you know, you think about that, right? I mean, if half the kids in our community got a cold, you know, we'd be calling the CDC and declaring an epidemic. But when half the kids in the community live in poverty, we turn a blind eye and kind of sweep it under the rug. And the state's been doing that too long.
It's an issue that a lot of us feel, a lot of us try to understand, but we're not the experts.
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
So tell me about that.
Oftentimes we are very, very passionate about these issues, and we try to develop programs and policies to solve these problems. Rarely do we bring people to the table who are actually living it and involve them in the solutions. And people who are struggling day to day to survive and make ends meet, they're the experts. Yes. And we need to be listening to that, I think.
It's a lot. You start to feel like you've lost yourself. You don't recognize who you are. And I would say resentment, but not towards my daughter, but just towards what other people were able to do and I couldn't. You know, just kind of beating myself up and feeling sorry for myself because all of a sudden I was in this predicament that I couldn't do anything. And it just, you know, over time, don't get me wrong, I love my daughter, but it was very hard, and I feel like I had missed out or lost things by having her so young.
And to me, it's the worst thing, never mind an adult, but a child. A child don't know. A child just knows who's caring for them and who's feeding them. They don't know the color. They don't know anything else. Like my kids are biracial. My ex-husband was a Jamaican man, hardworking. That's where my children lie, and that's where my children will stay. I would never take my children to go live the life that I have had to live, just because I wanted them next to me. I was told Joe that on the way here. That was a sacrifice, believe me, of my soul that hurts.
I think I had probably almost 2 weeks to go until I got paid again. I could do without, I could live on a box of macaroni for a week, but I couldn't do that to my daughter, and I felt like I had failed her, and that was the worst feeling, is not being able to do for her.
In case people don't know about Captain, give us just kind of that 30,000-foot view of Captain, if there is.
Really. We have a very wide range of services. We have a youth shelter for runaway and homeless youth. We have a street outreach program for runaway and homeless youth, when those guys are out there literally on the streets with these kids. We have our family assistance emergency program, which helps people who are facing housing crises or utilities, things like that, any kind of financial crisis. We have the Cheryl's Lodge Outreach Center in the Half Moon Heights mobile home community in Half Moon. Our CareLink Senior program is for helping seniors to stay in their homes. We have our Family Development Mentoring program and our Getting Ahead program.
The day that I came to Captain, I had a little meltdown because I overdrafted my bank account and I didn't get paid for at least another week, and I had no food, and I needed to figure something out because I had to feed my child, and that I was a mess. I don't know, I couldn't stop crying, and I didn't know what to do. I'd never had to do anything like that before. So I didn't even know where to begin. Somebody had told me about Captain. I looked it up on Google. I saw that they were doing it that day. I had to leave work early to come here. And I was pretty hysterical. I remember the lady that was here that day when I came in, she sat me down and she was quiet, but she was very calming. And for some reason that is exactly what I needed, because that's a very scary thing. I only really had to go through it, that one time, luckily. But that's when everything bottomed out, and that's when I realized that I needed to do something different, because I don't know where I would be if I had never gotten to that point, but I know that I wouldn't be in the place that I'm at today, mentally, emotionally, I'm in a whole different world than I was. I'm in a whole different world. Than I was.
And actually, since this spending cap has been put in place, we're spending about $1 billion less on human services and social service agencies than we were prior to 2011. So it's really having a damaging effect. Now, the Republicans are basically staking out their claim and saying absolutely no new taxes because they think, that's what their constituents and the people that are electing them want to hear. The Assembly, on the other hand, is saying, let's look at, kind of selective taxation, where we're asking the wealthy to pay a little bit more, people making more than $5, $10, $100 million a year, which I would suggest is very reasonable when you're only talking about a 1% increase, basically about over what they're paying right now.
Encroach upon my rights or dignities to seek your own. This ain't a poem, this is a plea. A request that your bequest be freedom, that your legacy be liberation. For what are we leaving for the next generation if we only teach them to crook knee and bend back and renounce their power to shine? Step out of line, reclaim your spirit and your time. It's now, it is always now.
When you continue to do the same things you always do and get the same results, that's insanity. When you spend billions to hold back anybody, when we could all share the wealth and get to we somebody, that's a sad state of affairs. Yet they'll call us African Americans. I'm an American African. Gotta catch up with some folks later. See, there's something called plate tectonics, and we're all family. We just don't know when it happened that we got separated. And it was never difficult to find me because I have a tan. And because of that tan, it was easy to define that I should do certain things based on the historical, nonsensical people that made it that way. Because all I remember is it says that these things were written. It says that God has made us all equal. And somewhere along the line, somebody wanted to cheat. So we're really not dealing with racism, we're dealing with demons. See, because either you're doing what's right or you're doing what's wrong, but you can't tell a lie, you don't know the difference between the two. The devil don't make you do nothing, it's a choice you make yourself.
We've had the war on drugs since the end of Prohibition. It was a way to give power to people who needed power. It was a way to put people in jail. So we have more people in this, we have 5% of the population of the world is in the United States, and 25% of the people in prison are in the United States, and they're put in prison because of, a lot of them because of drugs, nonviolent crimes. And now that the drugs and opioid epidemic is affecting people with lighter skin, we are looking at it as what it has always been, which is a disease of despair. And people are getting, or supposed to be able to get health care. But we don't have money for health care.
So do you sometimes advise people to withhold payment on medical bills?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I have to,
Sure.
be honest, sure.
First things first.
Yeah, I mean, it's that basic needs, right? Housing, food.
There's no peace without justice.
That's right.
As long as people are going without their needs being met, and I'm talking about basic needs, safety, home, food, so health.
Yeah,
so
sure.
without those needs being met, there is not going to be peace.
Right.
So we need to come together and see that we're all on the same side.
Right.
And if we don't come together, if we don't support each other rather than compete with each other,
right,
we're never going to get there.
Every man for himself does not work, because then everybody is an island, and there's no way. There's no way, because everybody is fighting to compete with the next person who they perceive to be perfect, and nobody is ever having that. They're never showing that vulnerability anymore. And there's so much competition in this world. It's me first, forget everybody else. And it can't be that way. I think we need to acknowledge that in order for anybody to thrive, we need to be interdependent to some degree. Not codependent, interdependent. But we need to be able to have a community that can have conversations about real issues that our society and our culture faces. And I think there's still a lot of stigma with that, and people don't want to be responsible for it.
So this was, information that, folks were like, hey, our kids are getting locked up, or, young people don't have other opportunities. And so we created that program in response to what folks said that they wanted. And so that's what I want to see, like, in this program that Bonnie, this amazing program, like, I want to see, like, decision makers being those folks who are, in poverty. I want to see at these meetings that are happening, with these officials, like, folks who are affected right there at the table, and not us speaking for people, but just opening the door if we happen to have the key, so that folks can go on and we can step out.
How is it possible that I'm that far from poverty, yet I still don't make enough to actually live and afford where I live? That doesn't make sense. That's not middle class. It's not middle class if you can't if you don't make what you're supposed to make, but yet you're still far from poverty. And you know what? There's really not a lot of help to be had in terms of, there's no financial assistance for those people in the middle. There's nothing. You know, by the grace of Captain, I was able to get the food pantry. But that's it. You know, there's not any sort of help for that chunk in the middle that's still supposed to be middle class.
The other thing I want you to understand is this, that it didn't cost the nation 1 penny to integrate lunch counters. It didn't cost the nation 1 penny to guarantee the right to vote. But now we are dealing with issues that cannot be solved without the nation spending billions of dollars and undergoing a radical redistribution of economic power. Yeah.
Thank you for watching this program. I hope it had as much impact on you as it did on us as we were producing it. Please follow these issues in the news, keep in touch with your representatives, and vote. Thank you.